Hello everyone, this is POW Ponder on Weather. In this update, we've got a series of storm complexes that are going to bring intense winds, damaging hail, and isolated tornadoes as the heat really starts to build in. So if you do like weather-related content, please subscribe to my channel, as I will upload about 5 videos a week to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's get right to it. Let's take a look at the overall satellite picture this morning. Man, you can see this huge complex that just blew up over Oklahoma last night about 4 o'clock in the morning, and now it's producing a ton of lightning, over several thousand lightning strikes, as this complex is really going to be packing a punch, actually producing some 80-mile-per-hour winds as these storm systems are going to be diving southeastward. But we've got a series of these storm systems going to be building back behind it. And not only that for today, but even for the next several days as well, are these going to be diving across down through the northwest flow. So let's take a look at the overall water vapor imagery this morning. You can actually see kind of these series of complexes. We've got this one this morning over portions of Oklahoma. That's going to be diving southeastward throughout the morning hours into the early afternoon into Arkansas. But yet we have another little disturbance back behind it that's going to impact portions of Nebraska, and then you have even another complex back behind it. So we've got series of storm complexes going to be traversing across over the next several days. So man, but to the south of that, we've got this developing ridge that's really going to be dominating over portions of the south and the southwest and much of the southern plains. You can actually see where this boundary is, right? Draped across right here in Oklahoma. These storm systems are going to be trying to push further south, but they're going to be held off with that northwest flow. So they're pretty much going to be traversing across this boundary here across Oklahoma into Arkansas this morning, going into the early afternoon hours, as this heat really starts to intensify further down to the south. So man, you can definitely take a look at the overall hazard map this morning. And yeah, I mean, even for this earlier on in the season, portions of California into the Arizona area under those excessive heat watches already, where they've got heat indexes rising well above 110 degrees today out there. And we've got numerous heat advisories and excessive heat watches out here in far west Texas, where the temperatures are going to be approaching 105, 110 degrees today. And the heat index even a little bit higher than that, even parts approaching almost 115. But you can see where they do have some severe thunderstorm warnings out here in portions of Oklahoma this morning. That's going to be diving across into the evening, afternoon hours. But let's take a look at the overall radar setup this morning and look at all the lightning. Look at all the lightning setting up shop over portions of Oklahoma. That's going to be diving across into, southeast today over through Arkansas. We also have some instability in portions just kind of north of Atlanta into Huntsville, back into Knoxville, and that extends all the way through Charleston, getting into portions of Pittsburgh, as a little boundary here, this little mini cool front is going to be pushing off, kicking some showers and thunderstorms this morning. So, but yes, there is a severe thunderstorm watch currently in place between now and 2 o'clock this afternoon for portions of Shawnee, getting into Durant and McAllister, all the way into Idabel. You start extending into Mena, into Hope, Arkansas. Those areas are going to be under the gun to produce some ping pong size hail with this particular system, and some 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts is definitely not out of the question, with a lot of lightning like I showed you. So definitely be on high alert over the next several hours, as this storm complexes will be diving southeastward, and then they will kind of fizzle out once we get towards the 2-3 o'clock time frame, and then yet we'll have another system trailing back behind that one. So that's why the Storm Prediction Center has highlighted an enhanced risk over portions of Nebraska today, getting into portions of Kansas, all the way extending as far south into the Texas panhandle. As yet we're going to be watching another storm complex that is going to be impacting, once this one kind of fizzles itself out, there's going to be another storm complex that really starts to get its act together off that northwest flow. So those also could be packing some 70 to 80 mile per hour wind gust, and then then produce some larger hail of that golf ball size hail or even higher. So even some isolated reports, I'm probably not out of the question today to produce some 2-3 inch hailstones is easily with the capability of this atmosphere today. So let's take a look at the overall radar setup. As we get deeper into the afternoon hours, you can definitely see where the storm complex will be over Arkansas. This is about 1 o'clock this afternoon. So we could be looking at some of those dying, decaying thunderstorms, still packing a punch, but not as severe as these continue to traverse across down to the southeast. We have a little bit of sea breeze action down here into portions of Key West, and then we have that instability along that cool front into portions of the mid-Atlantic and getting into the northeast, where most of the more kind of cooler conditions are really going to be locked over the Pacific Northwest, while the rest of us just kind of bakes and that heat really starts to intensify. But yes, as we get into that 7-8 o'clock time frame this evening, yes, we could be looking at supercell thunderstorms start to fire up into portions of South Dakota. That really expands as we get into Nebraska. So some of these could be some of those large hail producers out here in Nebraska, getting into portions of Iowa here, and those will start to bubble up with these little renegade isolated supercells. And you always have to be concerned about those, that those are going to be your larger hail producers of this kind of popcorn variety thunderstorms. As by 7 o'clock, that storm complex will be fizzling out and move over portions of west portions of west of Tennessee here. That extends into portions of Georgia, getting into Alabama, as well as, again, along that little cool front. That cool front will continue to traverse across into the east. That puts the showers and some moderate rain and extending into New York by then, getting into Vermont and New Hampshire as this will continue to traverse across to the east. But as you get into your Wednesday time frame, again, we have yet another complex you're going to be coming across the northwest flow, and then as we kind of heat up in the atmosphere, there's that boundary again. So we could be looking at some more storm complexes traversing across into the Texas Panhandle, into Oklahoma, getting into Arkansas. That extends all the way through the Tennessee Valley, and that'll extend all the way in through the Carolinas as well with those daytime heating thunderstorms. But let's take a look at the lightning over the next 2 days, because you can definitely see where the storms are going to be pretty much prevalent as they form essentially east of the Rocky Mountains. So if you live in Nebraska, getting into Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas Panhandle, Arkansas, Missouri, getting into the Tennessee, and just kind of northern parts of Mississippi, Alabama, getting into Georgia, you're probably going to be seeing some storms that are going to be really packing a punch with a lot of lightning and some very heavy rain and some larger hail producers. And then really some of the most prevalent is your intense winds. And sometimes it could be approaching those 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts is definitely not out of the question as these storms really start to get their act together over the next 2 days. And you can see the overall winds, kind of the swath of the latest convection model over the next 2 days. I mean, it's maxing out about 84 miles an hour. So yeah, there's going to be isolated spots, could be reports of some 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And in fact, the severe thunderstorm watch already calls for that as well. But there's going to be another one that could be coming across into Nebraska this evening. Those are also going to be packing some 78, 80-mile-per-hour wind gust as well. But yes, as we get into Thursday, kind of the same deal. You still have that northwest flow pretty prevalent. This is typically what you would see in June along the Great Plains. So we have another storm complex. It's going to blow up east of the Rocky Mountains, back into Nebraska, back into Kansas, back into northern Oklahoma, and those will be diving from the northwest to the southeast as they really start to get the act together, taking advantage of some of that daytime heating. These are kind of overnight setups. I mean, the ones in Oklahoma now really wasn't even doing anything until about 4 o'clock in the morning, and they just blew up. And then that storm complex, these little mesoscale convective systems, really start to move further off into the southeast. But man, the heat is going to be really building, and by Friday we could be talking about numerous record high temperatures in place into portions of the Southwest. I mean, I know they're expecting heat in the desert Southwest, but really not this early. I mean, 112 degrees already showing up, 113. So that's why they've got those excessive heat watches in place right now. And I think that a heat just cranks up a notch into another level as we get into Friday, especially into Texas. I think Dallas Fort Worth sees their easily first 100-degree day of the year, and that's just going to be the first of many as a very hot summer is on the table. And then we'll have this little mini cool front, like mini cool front. I mean, it tries to drop south, drop in temperatures like 4 or 5 degrees, but when you're 103 and the cool front drops you to 96, you know, that's summer in Texas for you. But yeah, so as we get into Friday, yeah, we could be looking at, you know, again, along that little mini cool front dropping further south. That will be setting the stage over portions of Arkansas again, getting into Mississippi, going into Alabama. That's where the storm complexes could be on your day on Friday. But going into Sunday, I mean, the ridge just really kicks in. I mean, this is the overall 500 height, you know, kind of your jet stream of where they would be essentially located, and it lifts well further to the north. So the northwest flow pretty much kind of shuts down by then as the ridge underneath is just dominates. So the only cool spot in town will really be kind of north of this boundary, essentially north of this yellow mark here, into Oregon, into you know, getting into Washington, as you start to see some sort of buckles in the jet stream where the instability could lie. But underneath that, the ridge just really intensifies, and the models just don't know what to do by Sunday because, yeah, I mean, the GFS, the European, I mean, I think they're pretty much broken at this point because, you know, when you're spitting out, you know, 110, 111, 112, 113 for this early on in the season for Texas, it's not like it hasn't happened, but that would be, you know, getting to almost historic levels. And, you know, it's kind of hard to believe, right? I mean, I know it's going to be hot, but I don't think it's going to reach, you know, 110, 113 degrees, but just kind of shows you of the heat that's going to be on the table as we get into next week, as that ridge will really start to intensify. So, but as we get into the, you know, again, around, you know, Tuesday, the 14th time frame, about a week out or so, we start to look for any signs of buckles in the atmosphere as that jet stream lifts well to the north. You've got a lot of heat building to the south, and then as this cranks up, this would actually be turning somewhat negatively tilted, and we could be setting the stage for, again, another round of pretty strong thunderstorms into portions of the Dakotas, with these really starting to pack a punch with some very intense winds as well. And that would just intensify as the ridge again just dominates and extends further north. We could be looking at triple digit heat extending northward into you know, into Nebraska, getting into Iowa. I mean, that's not out of the question as this ridge starts to really intensify as the jet stream lifts further and further and further north. We could be talking about severe weather in Canada because the ridge is so far north that the severe weather would push it that far north into Canada by then. But yeah, you can definitely see by the middle of next week, that ridge just dominates. I mean, this is the overall jet stream. So the only cooler spot in town is essentially the Pacific Northwest. I mean, the lower the pressure, typically the more, you know, the cooler air mass could be. But we got essentially a 588, 591, 594 ridge of high pressure, essentially dominating a good chunk of the Southwest, the Southern Plains into the Southeast, as the jet stream lifts well to the north. So any unsettled weather will be across just our far northern interior sections. And then the heat would, and then the severe threat would lift all the way up into portions of even portions of Canada by then. But the overall rain setup for the next, you know, 7 to 10 days, you can kind of see where all the instability is going to be. So the northwest flow, keeps remaining alive and active. You've got this Pacific jet bringing even the cooler conditions along the coast. Less rain amounts as you get inland, but not much to speak of. And for the desert Southwest and much of New Mexico, much of Texas, this is overall rain amounts over the next 10 days, guys. There's not much to speak of whatsoever. So a lot of the storm threat will be well to the north, and then off this northwest flow. So the kind of the bullseye is your Nebraska, is your Kansas, Oklahoma, getting into Iowa, Missouri, and get one to Arkansas here as this traverses across, eventually impacting portions of Mississippi into Alabama. And then where these little cool fronts are, we could be looking at multi-inch rains, of course, in portions of Wisconsin, getting into Michigan here through Ohio. And then most of the instability will be offshore along this front. But we could be looking at sporadic showers, and then of course you get little sea breeze action, and then we're watching the tropics as well. So a lot of indications say we could be looking at another possibly Pacific storm, bringing some of the crossover effect in the southern portions of the Gulf of Mexico as well. So we'll be looking out for that in the days ahead. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely leave your comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to catch the latest update where I protect you before and after the storm.